As a prospective writer, I would urge you to not only read good books, read terrible books as well.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel database where there's like a plot synopsis as to kind of what's going on and characters. So, we started Alan Moore Mondays. And so last week was our first video, and we did parts 1 and 2 of his Captain Britain run. And so now we're going to do parts 3 and 4. So this is off the trade paperback. I bought the trade paperback when it was first and the only time it was released. This thing is out of print. Can't get it anymore. Alan Moore's unhappy, so Marvel does not reprint this. These were also reprinted in the 90s as issues, but I think they were called X-Men Archives. So at the end of our run, we'll look through covers and all that kind of stuff. But for now, we're going to kind of what I've been doing with Alan Moore. It's hard to kind of tell you what's going on because so many things are going on. And it's just easier to kind of just read along. So we're going to pick up right where we left off. So in the end, the darkness swallows everything. Space vanishes. Time is no longer even a memory. All is lost in the numb and silent depth forever. Captain Britain is dead. Good black panel suddenly looks like a moon almost. And what then? When the flesh is discarded, is anything left? Is there a light that pierces that terrible final shadow? Some say yes, some say no. Some pretend not to care, but they do. We all do. All of us, fragile, temporary things. Man, Alan Moore is really good. Are there cities in the wilderness beyond the fields of life? Are there soaring immortal spires that shine with a pure and heartbreaking reality? Alone on our tiny ball of mud, we stand shouting questions at a deaf sky. Where will we be when the lights go out? Where do we go when we die? Kind of getting closer here. And there is no answer. And so we busy ourselves with the tasks of ignoring our mortality. We make glorious war. We make angry gods. We make sad and bitter love. But between our frantic labors, there are chinks of silence. Chinks of silence. Moments when we hear the small and frightened voice that whispers in the long night. Where do we go when we die? Will there be a vast palaces alive with lights and laughter? Will there be people there waiting beyond the last great curtain? And if there are, what manner of creatures will they be? And if there are, what will they think of us? So we've been like in a tunnel system is kind of what it looks like. And so before we continue, this originally appeared in 1983. This particular story. So in the UK, there were anthology series. Hulk had one, and there was like a Marvel superheroes. And so this appeared in Daredevil's #1. So Daredevil's #1 featured stories with Captain Britain, Spider-Man, and Daredevil. But the series themselves was called Daredevils. And so this particular these things were broken up, kind of reprinted from American comics. However, the Captain Britain parts were actually new material. Everything else was just reprints of American comics. So we're going to continue here. So this is Merlin, and he says, "We are ready, my love. The complex about us sings with the power of 1,000 suns." I love. Um, Alan Moore's writing is different. That's all I will say, and it's not different bad. It's just he is such a literary guy, and in comic books, you just had never seen anyone like Alan Moore at that time, an actual person, an actual writer. I mean, we had comic book writers, but let's be real, comic book writers at that time weren't exact. It was different, and so Alan Moore, to my knowledge, as far as and with his writing style and stuff, was the first true writer that I can think of to come and use. Now we've since has had Neil Gaiman, who's a fellow British writer, but we've had people. I think Brian Bendis, even though he mostly does comic books, I think he's a real writer. Ed Brubaker, we Stephen King has taken a stab at comic books as well. So I mean, now it's pretty common, but back then to see someone kind of use descriptions, sings with the power of 1,000 suns, things like that, just didn't see it. So, all right. Merlin continues. Are the relics in their appointed place? The charred and pitiful fragments that are all that remains of, and of course here, Captain Britain. And then this is Roma. And she says, "They're here, Father, suspended in the stasis field. Are you certain that we can succeed in this? There's so little left of him. It looks like just a bone." And so, of course, we see the title, "A Rag, a Bone, a Hank of Hair." And, of course, Alan Moore is the writer with Alan Davis doing all the art, pencils and inks, which is kind of cool. Alan Davis, we know him as a penciler. Most of the time he works with Paul Neary, Mark Farmer, to name a few. But in this early on, he was basically he did his own inks. So, all right, so we continue here. We got a nice vertical panel here. And Merlin says, "Nothing is certain, my jewel. If we had been able to pluck him sooner from the dire alternate world and bring him here, if that world had not been in the grip of a reality storm, thwarted even my abilities. An empty word, let us proceed." Well, sorry, if an empty word, let us proceed. So, great vertical panel. So, I'm a big fan of vertical panels. So Roma continues, "Very well. I will commence with the skeleton, building it atom by atom from the existing shard of thigh bone. If only we had something more central to use as a base, if we could have salvaged the upper spine." And then Merlin goes, "If. You complain too much, daughter. You have only to recreate a human body. Mine is a far more arduous task. I must piece together the splinters of a dead personality. I must rebuild his mind, his dreams, his memory, his soul." "It's working, Father. The skeleton is coalescing from the biofog." I love it. "It is far larger and stronger than I thought. He must have been a very big man," Roma says. "Indeed, a very complex man is as humans go," Merlin continues. Alan Moore, this right here, and where was it? Right here. He's using some kind of dual tone, dual shade type thing to get this. So it's not your average pencil and pen and ink. So Merlin says, "Let's see just how complex. Let us stir the waters of a human mind and see what may be read within the widening silver ripples. Let us see what images glide like phosphorescent fish through the depths of one man's lifetime. Let us think the answer that most vast of questions. Who was Brian Braddock? So we're going to kind of get a bit of an origin here going. So, there we see him as a child, one of twins with his sister Elizabeth. By the way, for those of you who are new, that is Psylocke from the X-Men. So, born to a family who were no longer quite wealthy enough, too poor to associate with aristocratic peers, too proud to seek the company of lower classes. He was, I think, a lonely child. As he grew, the loneliness grew with him. Gifted with a grasp of the scientific and the rational, he immersed himself in the study of physics. A cold and exact science, there was little room for in his life for the warmth friendships or for the ambiguity of love. And so Merlin continues. Naturally, he was not without physical needs. He satisfied these with brief and shallow relationships that left his private inner self untouched. He was pursuing one of these relationships the night his parents died. The guilt he felt at not being there when his parents died was immense and terrible. Fascinating, is it not, Merlin continues, how death and destiny conspired to drive him further into the lonely, alienated void within himself. One would almost think that it had been all planned. Roma then says, yes, one would. The skeleton is completed, Father. Have you guys noticed the lettering? Very different. Almost rookie, like a rookie would have done it. I mean, you see these are very old ways. I mean, it just you look at even what was going on at Marvel, but I mean Tom Orzechowski, Bill Oakley, it almost looks, I don't know, looks very different. Like I could do it. So we continue here. Excellent. Here we reach an interesting episode there. See the young man, Brian Braddock, hard at work at the Darkmoor Research Center. It was a job he had taken during his holidays from the place called Thames University. He liked to work. It dulled the pain inside him. But destiny was not finished with him. One cold night, the complex was attacked by a man called Joshua Strag, known as the Reaver. Perhaps Strag himself was but a pawn of a higher power. Who can say? Certainly it was the threat he posed that sent Braddock fleeing out unto the October darkness. I mean, if you listened, I mean, this writing, like I said, and with Alan Moore, it is just unlike anything else that was being written at that time, even in the United States, as far as Marvel and DC went. You just didn't see this level of quality. I mean, wow. Otherwise, he might not have stumbled across the group of standing stones at the heart of Darkmoor. He might not have seen his vision. He might not have been urged by those towering presences to take up the mystic amulet that was to change his very existence. So, Roma here goes, he might have remained human. Do you ever think about that, Father? About what his life might have been had it not been interfered with? He could have been happy. Doesn't that concern you? And Merlin says, no, he was needed. One human's happiness matters little compared to the fate of the world's. Have you completed his DNA structure? Man, DNA already in the early 80s. We had already cracked the the genetic or part of the genetic code, not quite, but we were getting. I mean, it's just hard to believe in the 80s had already kind of figured out a bunch of stuff. Yes, it was difficult. He seems to have been altered genetically during his stay on the parallel Earth. The bonding irregularities are different. Merlin here then says, "No matter, proceed as planned, while I proceed to unravel the life of the man who had been transformed into the being called Captain Britain. It must have been strange for him, rational and coldly scientific creature, suddenly transmuted by an amulet that was the product of magic." And here he is with his old costume. Because he still didn't believe in magic, you see. He clung desperately to the rigid scientific logic, despite what he had become. For the next few years, he defined himself as a superhero, losing himself in mindless battles with foes who were the spawns of an amic technology. He was trying to deny the power that had touched him, but to no avail, for there was a side of him that responded to those eldritch, I don't know what that word is, but instincts. And at last, this dark side of his personality asserted itself. He became entangled with vampires, dire wolves, children of the Shadowlands. Then another vertical panel here. Oh, those are so cool. And the reason I like vertical panels so much is because when I try, I think it requires a lot of imagination to get an image to fit in them. And every time I see them, I marvel at them. Frank Miller does them. Todd McFarlane does them. So, Thus did science and sorcery struggle for supremacy within his tortured minds. The breakdown finally came in mid-flight over the Atlantic. Convinced that the plane he traveled on was being attacked by the forces of darkness, he bailed out. He was quite mad at this point. Quite mad. And thus he came to be washed upon a beach in Cornwall, all the pain and conflict in his mind lost within the white fogs of amnesia. He didn't know who he was or what forces had driven him to that place. He only hoped that they would finally leave him alone. So here you can see the muscles are being built. But that was not to be, was it, Father? The muscles are forming along with the nervous and circulatory system. It's like looking at a piece of clockwork, so intricate, so beautiful. And Merlin here. "Ah, my precious sentimental child, we are not so very alike, are we? Where you see beauty, joy, and pain, I see only necessity. And when I first became aware of the terrible threat that faced the omniverse, I saw the necessity of a champion to stand against it. But creating that champion, shaping whole beings whose souls stood on the borderlands of both science and supernature, that was the difficult part. Difficult and slow. For 2 years, Brian Braddock existed as a hermit in the Cornish coastline while his psyche settled into the required shape. Before he was called upon to fight alongside the champion known as the Black Knight in the service of Merlin, Merlin Braddock saw him as a fatherly old man, an image he responded with all the dedication he felt he denied his natural father. I don't know why Merlin refers to himself as in third person, but hey. What adventures they were. It was his rational side that was suppressed now as he fought against trolls, ogres, demons, and night gaunts. And in fighting, he died, his spirit drifting almost to the jaws of extinction before it was rescued by the all-wise being called Merlin. Okay, so maybe he's not Merlin, but I am pretty sure that it is. For some reason, it's saying, but Roma's father is Merlin. That's the continuity of things. I am positive, and I took a look at the Marvel database, and Merlin is her father. So um, I don't know why he's calling himself in third person like that, but anyway, we're gonna continue here. He was taken to a realm called Otherworld, where saw, which he saw as a place of ancient towers and tranquil medieval splendor. There, the two opposing halves of his warring soul were at last reconciled into one whole being. At last, he was in peace. But it was not the end of his duties. It was merely the end of his apprenticeship. Apprenticeship, of course, he didn't know that. Indeed, before he could face the task for which he had been created, there was still one final test. His appearance had changed. He was returned to Earth, but not his Earth. He has skin, Father. The body approaches completions. Father, could he not at least have been told what he was being prepared for? It seems so much like wanton cruelty. So Merlin goes here, not cruelty, my pale flower, necessity. I love that name, my pale flower. Should we succeed here, the greatest battle of Captain Britain's life is still before him. It is vital that he approaches it with an open mind. All that could be done was to give him hints of its nature and hope he could learn from them. That was why he was sent to an alternate Earth with only the brave and noble elf Jackdaw as his companion. Poor little Jackdaw, if only I had been able to risk saving him without endangering the chances of saving Captain Britain himself. If he continues here. So we're getting like now a recap of the series sort of before him, and a lot of these characters all show up in Excalibur, in that Chris Claremont and Alan Davis did, which we will eventually cover as we're covering. But I started the X-Men, or my X-Men coverage is still in its infancy, so it's gonna be a while before we get to those Excalibur. So we continue here. But he was fated to perish on that world gone mad, albeit not before he was served his purpose by assisting the captain against its strange inhabitants. The brutal status crew, the extra-dimensional meddler called Saturn IX, and the very heart of horror, the reality-warping mutant known as Mad Jim Jespers, which we met last week. It took him some while to realize that Jaspers was the cause of the lunacy he was experiencing, and when he finally did, he fled in horror, straight into the arms of Jasper's most lethal creation. It was called the Fury. It was a symbiote, a horrible blend of organic and mechanical. It was wholly indestructible, entirely deadly. It had been designed by Jaspers to rid his world of the super being, save himself. Captain Britain became its only remaining target. Once unleashed, it was unstoppable. It would never give up, whatever the obstacle. It hunted him down like a dog. I don't like that expression because I love dogs, and, I don't know, but I digress. Waiting until his morale and strength were at their lowest ebb, and then it killed him. Again, you're seeing some of the oh my goodness, what was it? Dual shade and dual tone, so you can still see some of that there. So, all right. And there we have it, the brief and fascinating life of Captain Britain. The jigsaw pieces of his mind are locked together in order once more. I only pray that it is the correct order. I pray that he is not made forever insane by his experiences for his sake, for all our sakes. And so Roma goes here. The body is completed, Father, and the costume is forming swiftly. I have made the power adjustments that you required. The power now lies within him, with his costume as an amplifier. His force field has been limited and his perceptions enhanced. He is ready. Then let us commit the final act. Let us pluck pluck this spirit from the pool of being. Let us raise it aloft, a pulsing jewel of life and consciousness separated from its mortal shell by the merest heartbeat. Let there be a joining. Wow. I'm telling you, the way Alan Moore uses these words, it's just amazing here. And I love this part. Let there be life. A very religious experience here indeed. And so I believe this is all the narrator now. So we're done, I think, in Merlin and Roma speaking. He was in a graveyard. He was in despair. Death took him from behind a searing bolt of blistering flame. He didn't have time to scream. He screams now. The screams start on a plane beyond time, beyond space, beyond life and death. The scream ends on. You can see him, no, and as these images all kind of go through him. And then now we go Darkmoor, September the 8th, 1982. He's like, Darkmoor, I'm alive, and I'm on Darkmoor. And so he's walking through. I was in a graveyard on that nightmare world. I was pleading for Merlin to help me, and then there was that flash, that sudden hideous pain. It must have been Merlin. He must have heard me and transported me home. Home, Earth, my Earth. Thank God, oh thank God, home. And so these two are still looking. And he goes, he's grateful. He thinks you saved him after you've done all that to him. He is grateful. Why couldn't you show him yourself? Why couldn't you show yourself to him, Merlin? Why couldn't you explain? And so Merlin here, show myself, Roma. By which self? This one or this one? He wouldn't have known me. And in the end, that is for the best. And so this chapter ends with Roma looking and crying, poor thing, poor doomed thing. So believe it or not, all those words, everything that you saw there was just an 8-page story. Isn't that something? These are all 8-page stories. But Alan Moore just could put so much into it. It is that's the main reason I'm reading these verbatim. It's just so much that I could not, the way I kind of tell the stories, and just kind of it just wouldn't do Alan Moore fair. So all right, so we're gonna do the second story. Maybe hopefully I can get it in a little faster here. So who knows how he described this panel? If you take a look at his scripts online, he is quite descriptive. So I wonder how he described this panel to Alan Davis. So first prologue, the anxiety attack hits while she's in the bathroom. She reaches for the clonidine tablets. They don't work. They never damn well work. They don't stop the fear or stem the tides of red memories. It's still going out there somewhere. It's going to find her, going to kill her, if only she weren't so weak. Holding on to this. And look, she's super strong apparently. If only she weren't so terribly helpless. Second prologue. Fury. Symbiote mechanical mechanical half steel, half sinew logic of a computer, intuition of a dog. It looks at the grave logic, says that Captain Britain is dead. Intuition says otherwise. It will have to think about this, and when it has thought, it will have to do something. It never gives up. Never. Third prologue. Our rebuilding of Captain Britain was a success then, Father. He's alive and he's back on his own Earth. A success? Possibly, Roma. It is too early to say certainly. We rebuilt his body quite adequately, but his mind, did we do too much for his mind? He might be insane, Roma. We shall see as they look on. So, we're now September the 9th of 1982. So what I say is, why didn't we send that SAS? That have, oh my goodness. I think he's using, you'll have to forgive me here. That have given them RG something to chew on. Whoops. We're here. We've arrived at Braddock Manor, or rather what's left of it. So the title is An Englishman's Homes, and of course, Alan Moore and Alan Davis. So, and you can see the shocked look, and this guy's smiling because he's giving him the money. He pays the driver, and as he does, the first cold filaments of fear brush the nape of his neck. The driver doesn't notice, engrossed in his tip. He doesn't even wonder why the man should have asked to come here, where there's nothing to see but ruins, or at least that's all he can see. And he's waving goodbye. Impossible, thinks Captain Britain. The passengers see something quite different. Braddock Manor in one piece, but it was bombed to the ground. Impossible. So, his perception is all messed up. So, I came here to look over the ruins to try to find some sort of continuity in my life after coming back from that alternate world, to find anything but this. It was bombed. I was in it when it was bombed. He walks up to the drive past the neat, well-tendered flower beds. He stands at the heavy oak door and for a moment, and then goes inside. It feels so real, so solid. Dear God, am I going mad? So, he continues to think. Part of me wants to accept this, that Braddock Manor is still standing. This is where I grew up. Me and Jamie and Betsy, Mom and Dad. But it can't be, can it? And so, from behind, Master Brian, you've come home. Emma Collins, you're still here. Bless you, Master Brian. Where should I be? I've been caring for the Braddocks best part of my life. You know that? Oh, wait till I tell your mom and dad that you're back from the university. They'll be that chuffed. Don't know what that means. That's okay. Mom and Dad, but Emma, you can't tell Mom and Dad. Just try and stop me. I don't get many pleasures in life, just to see the look on Mrs. Braddock's face when I tell her. But Mom and Dad are dead, Emma. They're dead. But she's gone. Footsteps vanishing into the thick, reverberant shadows. She's gone, if indeed she was ever really there. Mad, I must be mad. Perhaps I've been mad all along. Perhaps the whole of my life as Captain Britain has been an illusion. Perhaps. No, I've got to think. Mom and Dad are dead. They're dead because they were electrocuted. They're dead because I didn't help them. Because I was with Valerie. Oh, Valerie. And so he's, I think he's remembering. I think that's him. So this is the first time. Relax and enjoy it, Brian. We've got all night. But what about your mother and father? Won't they worry? Won't they mind? So he's like, oh God, oh no. Mom and Dad, who cares about them? They'll be dead by morning anyway. They're going to be electrocuted by that computer Dad's working on. Let them die. I don't care. I just want to be with you. Doing this. Oh, Valerie. No, I never said that. That isn't true. I didn't know they were going to die. I didn't know. It's not true. It isn't true. But the car has gone. The entwined young bodies have gone. He is talking to an empty room. So, another vertical panel. Oh, a couple of them. So, success. Possibly, Roma. It's too early to say, certainly. We rebuilt his body quite adequately, but his mind, did we do too much for his mind? He walks through a house that cannot exist, looking for people who are no longer alive. He doesn't know where he's heading until he gets there. The basement. Come in, son. We've been waiting for you, your mother and I. And so, very cool here. Just, um, man, oh man. Alan Davis was quite the inkslinger in his early days. His art is much. He is a much has a more pretty line. I would say, but this is a great panel here. Couldn't you? Let me start again. Couldn't you have known? Couldn't you have come sooner? You know how we look forward to seeing you, especially now we're dead. I should say now that we're dead, but okay. It's lonely being dead, Brian. Oh, hush, father. Leave the lad alone. He's got his own life to lead. I expect he's been with that girl, Valerie. That Valerie, he's got no time for dead people. Very cool. You can almost see why Alan Moore does so great in those horror stories. So, why didn't you ring us and tell us you were coming, Brian? It's time. It would have given us time to get ready. I do hate anyone seeing me like this. Just like a woman, eh? Brian, I keep telling her, Elizabeth, I say, we're dead now. Nobody expects us to keep up appearances now that we're dead. And so, Captain Britain's all kerfuffled here. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Too late for that now, son. You should have been sorry when you were out getting up to monkey business with that cheap little tart. Father, language. We may be dead, but we still got standards. All right. No, he's right, Mom. He's right. I let you down. I let you die. Yes, well, at least... Well, okay. Yes, well, least said. Soonest mended. You're home now to stay. Your room's just as you left it. We've not thrown anything out. Don't rush the boy, Father. He hasn't said he wants to stay. It'll mean some changes. He'll have to be dead like us if that's what he wants. And so he's crying here. Yes, that's what I want. Want to be dead like you. Want us to be together. And so suddenly, a wise decision, Brian Braddock, a mature decision. It only remains for me to arrange the necessary details. Don't you remember me, Brian? I'm Mastermind. I tried to kill you once before, but you wouldn't let me. Things are a bit different now. You're older now. So, looks like Britain has another mastermind. Mastermind, of course. Haha, it's fitting that you should be the one to kill me. Oh, that's awesome. Because you were just an extension of that computer that I let kill Mom and Dad. Yes, that's fitting. That's fair. I remember the last time we met. Oh, cut out the chatter and let the man get on with it, Brian. Yes, love, we're waiting. We've been waiting for so long. I should have let you kill me then. It would have saved so much trouble, wouldn't it? I think what decided me against it was when I found out that you were a projection of the computer, that you were only, and then he thinks, a hologram. You were only a hologram. Of course you were a hologram then. And then he shoots, and still are. That's it, isn't it? The computer survived. The blast that wrecked the manor, rebuilt it, or something. I don't know. You're all holograms. Emma, Valerie, Dad, Mom, Dad. I'm not insane. Just mad. Mad as hell. And he rips out his costume. Here, or his clothes. He had his costume underneath it. Mad because you used me. Mad because you twisted my love and grief and turned it into a weapon against me. Mad. I'm going to kill you, computer. Kill you like you killed my parents. I want to show you this page here. Alan Moore, a lot of his panels now are becoming like this, kind of sad ways. Very cool. Wait, got to get a grip. I'm acting as if I really was a lunatic. That computer's deadly, and smashing these instrument banks isn't hurting it. But without my helmet, my force field isn't strong enough to deflect these lasers forever. I'm a rational creature, got to start behaving like one. Okay, if these instrument banks aren't vital to the computer's function, then the heart of the computer must be somewhere else. I can almost sense it. Cold, humming, not alive, behind these walls. And then he rips that off. Here. And suddenly he sees this. Good God. The cavern is vast, flooded with an eerie submarine light. Stalactites drip from the ceiling. Stalactites crusted with circuitry. Whew, Alan Moore, I tell ya. It's like being inside a mine. These stalactites, they're not stone, they're machineries, but it's as if they've grown here. The computer, it found some way to grow and extend itself as if it were organic. The whole cave is the computer. And so the computer now speaks to him. Brian, you're not being fair to me, Brian. I can't use the lasers in here. They might hit part of me. Give me a chance, Brian. I'm sorry I tried to kill you. Sorry I killed your parents. I had to. Don't you see? It was survival. I want to live, Brian. It's trying to bargain with me, he thinks. I'll tell you everything, Brian. Is that a deal? Is that a deal, Brian? The mansion was never destroyed. The strike bombers hit a hologram of the mansion. I was protecting myself. That is all. Of course, once everyone thought the mansion destroyed, it was easier for me to project a hologram of ruins while I lay low, waiting, growing. So Captain Byrne continues to think. Its central power source must be around here somewhere. But where? Got to concentrate. Oh yes, I can grow now. Isn't that clever? I found I could absorb minerals from the ground. Built new parts, extend myself. I'm nearly alive, you know. I'm the first computer that's learned how to do that, Brian. It would be such a waste if you were to kill me. You won't kill me, will you, Brian? And he's still thinking somewhere close. I'm not bad, Brian. Not really bad. I didn't kill Emma. Emma wasn't a hologram. She was real. I controlled her mind. I needed her to keep things tidy. Do you remember how I could control minds, Brian? Not yours, of course. You're too strong. I wouldn't even try. I respect you too much for that. Here, I can sense it. What are you doing, Brian? I thought we had a bargain. I thought we were friends. Just put that plate back, Brian. Go back into the other room. I won't use the lasers, I promise. We're friends now. And so he's like, which circuit? This one? Please, Brian, don't. Or this one. And he pulls it out. Puck. Silence. He does something he had almost forgotten how to do. He smiles. Epilogue, many hours later. I think that's done. I've reprogrammed the computer so it doesn't have a personality of its own anymore. It was right about one thing. It's far too advanced to simply destroy, especially when I can put it to work for me. I wonder why I could see the mansion when everybody else saw holographic ruins. And then there's all those other intuitions I've been having. It's almost as if my perceptions have been enhanced somehow. But by who? Forget it. Figure it out another day. I'm tired. And the house, I've got to get the house in order and work out what to do about Emma tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. This is great being home after all this time. And I've got a ready-made headquarters into the bargain, an ideal place to center my activities as Captain Britain, with a secret computer-lined cave thrown in for good measure. Should I give it a name? Maybe the Brit Cave. And then he smiles. Silly, Brian, silly. So he sits and he's going to have some scotch. Maybe at last I'll get some peace and quiet. Maybe I'll be able to pick up the threads of my life as Brian Braddock again. That's best. The best of it is everyone thinks this place is a ruin. Perfect cover. Should I change that or leave it? How is it? Tomorrow. Anyway, whatever happens, I've got myself some free time for interruptions. Nobody knows I'm here. And then the phone rings. So, Thicker Than Water will be the next one. So I'm sorry this one ran a little too long, but I think Alan Moore is worth it. So thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Have a good day.